Since both of our family ancestry goes back to North Carolina.
Yes. And Kinston.
In Kinston.
Yeah, we had family there in that area. They were the best family, B-E-S-T.
Wow.
That was my father's family. Yes, B-E-S-T.
That's B-E-S-T.
Yep.
Now tell me, as far as ethnicity goes, I know this is always the big thing for most blacks in America. You know, what do you think we are?
Indians.
So, okay, say that one more time for the people.
Indians.
Well, we don't believe you. You need more people.
Hank Greeley, a law professor at Stanford University, has studied this new field. He worries that people don't realize just how many ancestors they actually have.
Uh-oh.
8 generations ago, both you and I had 256 great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents.
Wait, you're saying that if you go back 8 generations, we have 256 great-great-great-grandparents?
Yes, it doubles every generation. So you've got 2 parents, you have 4 grandparents, you have 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents, and it adds up fast. It adds up so fast, in fact, that if you go back 20 generations, you've got over 1 million grandparents.
1,048,576 to be exact.
Uh-oh.
Alright, bro, this is my grandma right here, bro. She got on a whole Indian outfit, bro. That's my grandma, bro.
That's cool. That's what's up. Now let's get to that. Let's get to your ancestors from the 1400s.
All right, you don't. You really don't. You want to just acknowledge your one grandma or the ones you know that are Indian, and
Uh-oh.
but I just feel like you're leaving out a whole lot of history, and very good history. You never know who these people are.
Black Indians are a people whose collective past is barely known. Their identity is often clouded by uncertainty and denial.
After the reveal, we asked people to discuss the relationship between their stories and what they find in their DNA.
I think when I was here last time, I was talking about how in Black families, we don't talk a lot about having like European blood. Yes. And so my family story is that we never mention it. And so, but the story is that we have a lot of like Native American or indigenous blood. And then I like get the results and it's like 13% European, and I'm like, and 3% Native American.
I was most upset that there was no Native American. That really was the thing that upset me the most.
Oh, tell me why that upset you.
Because I had always thought that was a part of who I was. For it not to show up at all, that shocked me.
Uh-oh.
So your great-grandfather was a white man. Did you know this?
Yeah, my mother said so. Yeah.
Does it bother you at all?
What's the bother? It's me. I don't know. I think anybody should be pleased at whoever your ancestors were.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're here.
Oh, absolutely.
When people were trying to diminish the capacities or the credibility of Booker T. Washington, used to say that he's white.
Right, because he was a mulatto.
Because any good had come from the white side.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always been very sensitive to that, but I've never thought of myself having any white blood in me.
How are white ancestors part of African American history, do you think?
How?
Sure, or are they?
Gosh, yeah, of course they're a part of our African American history, and more prevalent in the South than anywhere else in the country.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you got to have proximity to have sex, right?
You got to have proximity to have it, right? Absolutely.
And the greatest percentage of our admixture comes from European ancestors. But for some reason, it's much easier for us to imagine another source.
He knew his grandmother, Elizabeth Redmond, and he said she was a full-blooded Cherokee.
Like almost all African Americans I know, my relatives are convinced that we have Native Americans in the family.
This is Lucy's sister, and she had hair down to her knee. I thought she looked, like a Native American.
And that's, like I said, that was my mom, and she wore 70s headbands.
Oh, that's your mom?
In the 70s.
Oh,
she
your
looked
mom's
like,
cool.
Everyone thought she was Native American.
I have a little Choctaw Indian in my background.
She looked like an Indian woman. She looked like, you know, I mean, like straight off the prairie.
They talk about the cheekbones and.
Yeah, you do have high cheekbones.
Yeah.
She always had long black hair, and so, you know, that's Indian hair.
But I've long been suspicious of these stories. How could so few Native Americans sleep with so many African slaves? That's why I've asked the geneticist, Dr. Mark Shriver, to put these rumors to the test.
Let's get off of the DNA thing, because we keep running in circles with this shit, right?
Uh-oh.
Now we're going to go on to Tina Turner. Her family reports indigenous American ancestry.
Oh, yeah.
Tina grew up believing that two of her grandparents were part Native American.
But you're only 1% Native American. You know how your family has always thought that you had all this Native American heritage?
Yes.
It was white heritage that you had.
All this time, I've been thinking Indian. I was dying to find out what tribe it was.
You're from the tribe of Europe.
Wow.
And I'm 3% Native American, so I got just a little Indian.
You got a little Indian in you. 0% Native American. And 0% Native
There you
American.
go.
And 0% who were Native American.
We're gonna have to tell the Choctaw Nation in Oklahoma now that I misrepresented myself. I'm not Choctaw at all, you know.
Uh-oh.
And you'll see there's no figure for Native American because you ain't got no Native American.
Set the record straight.
Even Don Cheadle, who we would expect to have some Native American ancestry because of the connection to the Chickasaw, members of your family owned by Native Americans. But we don't find any.
Uh-oh.
Wow. And you're not alone in not having any measurable Native American ancestry. 1 in about every 20 African Americans only 1 in 20 has any significant amount of Native American ancestry.
Uh-oh.
So apocryphal. Yeah. No. Turns out they didn't really dig you that much.
To get to the bottom of this contradiction, for once and for all, I've invited an expert on Native American history to meet me at Harvard, Dr. Claudio Sant. Claudio, one common belief among African Americans is that the slaves managed to escape from plantations and find refuge with their Native American brothers and sisters. They'd sit around the campfire, slapping five and smoking the peace pipe with Cochise. Did this happen?
In some cases it happened, but just as often these fugitive slaves were captured by Indians and returned to the planters. And in fact, the colonies had policies, they implemented policies of rewarding Indians who returned fugitive slaves. They might be given 2 guns and a kettle if they brought back a live slave, and half as much if they brought back a dead slave, or rather the 2 ears of a dead slave, which is what they required.
According to Claudio, substantial social contact only occurred in the early colonial era, when settlers enslaved Native Americans and African Americans together, and between the Revolution and the Civil War, when a small number of black people were enslaved by the 5 civilized tribes.
If this is true, why does every African American I know believe that their grandmother had high cheekbones and straight black hair?
I think it's probably a desire to be associated with people who are portrayed in popular culture as fierce warriors and who resisted the United States. And if you're a slave or an African American living in Jim Crow America, who wouldn't want to be associated with someone like Crazy Horse or Geronimo?
It's easier to say we got a little Indian in us than to say we got raped a few times.
Right.
The first time I told my mom I was doing this, she was like, oh God. Like, she was scared because I feel like in my family there's like a lot of different little secrets.
The Logans were married for 37 years and had at least 18 children together. But as we scoured the records that they left behind, we noticed something unusual. A secret that Viola's grandfather, Henry, had largely kept to himself. In his Social Security application, filed in the early 1940s. Henry's father is listed as being a man named Gable Logan. But when Henry passed away in 1979, his obituary said something very different.
He was a son of the late John Young and Mrs. Corinne Ravenel Logan. Oh.
Uh-oh.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Well, according to this obituary, Henry's father was a man named John Young, not Gable Logan. Did your mom ever talk about this?
Never.
Isn't that interesting? That silence?
Silence is always interesting to me.
You don't. You really don't. You want to just acknowledge your one grandma or the ones you know that are Indian and...
Well, we don't believe you. You need more people.